When I walked into that fancy restaurant wearing my old jeans and worn-out sneakers, I didn't plan to stay. I just wanted to check what the staff was doing that night. But the moment the soft jazz music stopped and I heard that familiar laugh, that loud, proud laugh, my whole world froze. It was my father, sitting at a table near the window, dressed in his custom gray suit, laughing as if the world belonged to him. Next to him was my mother, in her shiny red dress, holding a glass of wine like a trophy. They were surrounded by 4 other couples, people they probably called friends. And there I was, standing just a few feet away, invisible in my own restaurant. I could have walked away. I should have walked away, but something inside me wanted to see. To know if after 5 years they'd recognize the son they threw out like garbage. The waiter noticed me and smiled. "Evening, Mr. Hayes," he said softly. But before I could respond, my father's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Hey, you there," he barked. Everyone turned to look. My stomach tightened. He squinted at me, his lips curling in disgust. "What are you doing here? You serve here or something?" His friends chuckled. My mother looked down, pretending to fix her napkin. My father wasn't done. "Don't just stand there. Go help the staff. Make yourself useful for once." I heard the laughter, every bit of it slicing through my chest. Let me take you back to the start. 5 years ago, I remembered how my father bragged about me being the next big engineer. Until I told him I wanted to be a chef. That night, he called me a disgrace. He said, "No son of mine will flip burgers for a living." He kicked me out with nothing but a backpack and a dream that everyone said would fail. And now here he was, sitting under my chandeliers, eating food from my kitchen, laughing at me again. I could feel my hands shaking. My manager, Eric, whispered beside me, "Sir, you don't have to deal with this. I can handle it." But I shook my head. "No, Eric, I need to." I walked toward the table, each step heavy but calm. My mother finally looked up. Her eyes widened. "Michael?" she whispered. My father frowned. "You two know each other?" one of his friends asked, smirking. "Unfortunately," my father said coldly, "he's my son, or used to be, until he decided cooking was better than college." The table erupted in laughter again. I clenched my jaw so tight I thought my teeth would crack. Every word brought back the nights I slept in my car, the mornings I walked into diners begging for a chance to cook, the countless rejections, the burns, the long hours. And now they were laughing in my restaurant. Then came the twist I didn't expect. One of my father's friends lifted his fork and smiled. "James, this food is incredible. Probably one of the best steaks I've ever had." My mother nodded. "Yes, it's really good," she said softly, almost surprised. My father chuckled. "Well, finally, a restaurant that knows what quality means." Eric, standing beside me, gave me a look half proud, half pained. I couldn't help but smile, even as my chest ached. The same man who once told me I'd never make a living in the kitchen was now praising my cooking without knowing it. For a moment, I just stood there, watching them enjoy my food, laugh with their friends, and live like the past never happened. Then my father waved his hand at the waiter. "Could you get this man out? He's disturbing our dinner." The waiter hesitated. "Sir, he—" "Now," my father snapped. For a moment, I thought about screaming, about telling everyone right there who I was. But instead, I turned slowly and walked away, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the music start again. I walked back toward the kitchen, where Eric followed me. "Michael," he said carefully, "should I tell them?" I looked at the doorway, at the man who gave me life, but never love. "Not yet," I said quietly. Let's see how far they go. A few minutes later, the waiter rushed to me, looking nervous. "Sir," he said, "your parents are asking to meet the owner. They said they want to compliment the food personally." I smiled. Not with anger, but with something deeper, pain mixed with pride. I wiped my hands on my apron, fixed my collar, and said, "All right then, let's give them what they asked for." As I stepped out of the kitchen, the crowd's murmurs grew louder. All eyes turned as I walked back toward that same table, the one where my parents sat, smug and satisfied. My father looked up, rolling his eyes. "What now?" And that's when I said, "It's slow, calm, and clear. Enjoy your meal," I told them. "It's on the house. My house." The laughter stopped. The room went dead silent. My mother's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. My father's mouth hung open, words frozen in his throat. And right there, in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years' peace. But that peace didn't last long, because as I turned to walk away, a voice from behind said something that made my blood run cold. Something that changed everything. "So you finally got what you wanted, huh? Let's see how long you keep it after tonight." That voice, deep, calm, but filled with something darker. Something cold enough to make my stomach twist. I turned around slowly. The restaurant was still silent after my big reveal. My parents were staring at me like they were seeing a ghost. My mother's hand trembled on her wine glass. My father's jaw was tight, his pride swallowing the apology he'd never say. And just a few tables behind them, standing near the bar, was a man I hadn't seen in years. Mr. Henson, my father's old business partner. The same man who once told him to teach that stubborn son of yours a lesson when I refused to take the engineering scholarship. He looked at me with that same condescending smile. "Quite an empire you've built, Michael," he said smoothly. "But remember, success doesn't last forever, especially when you've made enemies." Before I could speak, he turned and walked out. Just like that. But his words stayed. They sat heavy in my chest long after the door closed behind him. Later that night, when the restaurant was empty, I sat in my office, staring out at the city lights. The laughter from earlier replayed in my head, my father's voice, full of pride when he thought I was gone, full of shame when he realized I'd made it. It should have felt like victory, but instead, I felt something else. A chill I couldn't explain. I remembered the night they threw me out. I had told them I wanted to be a chef. My father slammed his hand on the table. "You want to waste your life cooking for strangers?" My mother's tears couldn't stop him. He packed my bag himself and threw it on the porch. That was the last night I called that place home. The next morning, Eric came in early and found me still in the office. "You didn't go home?" he asked. I shook my head. Couldn't sleep. He frowned. "You sure everything's okay?" "That guy last night." "Mr. Henson?" I said. "Yeah, he's just talk. Always has been." I tried to believe it. I really did. But deep down, I knew men like him didn't throw words around for nothing. At noon, the restaurant was packed again. Smiling faces, clinking glasses, the smell of rosemary and steak. Everything felt normal. Until Eric came rushing from the kitchen, his face pale. "Michael," he said, "you need to come now." I followed him inside. 2 health inspectors stood in the middle of the kitchen, wearing gloves, holding clipboards. "Good afternoon," one of them said politely. "We received an anonymous report about illegal substances stored here." I froze. "What?" The inspector continued. "We just need to run a quick check." My staff looked terrified. They'd never seen anything like this. The inspectors moved around, checking every corner, every cabinet, every shelf. Then one of them turned, holding a small plastic packet. Inside, it was something white. A bag of drugs. He said quietly, "Endax." The entire kitchen went silent. My heart dropped. "That's not ours," I said immediately. "This is a clean kitchen. You can check our records, But he shook his head. "We'll still have to report it. The restaurant will remain closed until the investigation is complete." Outside, the media had already gathered as if someone had tipped them off. Flashes from cameras hit my face as I stepped out. "Mr. Hayes, is your restaurant under investigation for drug possession? Were you aware of the illegal activities happening here?" I wanted to scream, but I just stood there, silent, watching everything I built start to crumble. And in the middle of that chaos, I saw him again. Mr. Henson, standing by his car across the street, smiling. Our eyes met for just a second before he turned away, and I finally understood. This wasn't random. This was payback. That night, I walked back into the dark, empty dining room. The chairs were stacked, the kitchen sealed with yellow tape. I'd spent 5 years building this dream brick by brick, and it was collapsing overnight. As I reached for my office door, something on the floor caught my eye. A folded napkin, the same kind we used on every table. I picked it up slowly. Inside, written in elegant cursive, were 6 words that made my skin crawl. "You should have listened to your father." I looked around, but no one was there. Just silence. For the first time since that night 5 years ago, I felt small again, like the boy standing on the porch, watching his family turn their back on him. But this time, I wasn't walking away. Not again. The sound of that restaurant tape tearing through my dream still haunts me. It wasn't just plastic. It was the sound of 5 years of sleepless nights being sealed away. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't even drink water. I just sat in my dark apartment, staring at the news playing on my cracked TV screen. Famous chef Michael Hayes, under investigation for drug possession in his luxury restaurant, The Ember Room. The words felt unreal. Every headline was a dagger, and the comment section filled with strangers calling me a fraud. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Only tears I thought I'd buried long ago. 2 days later, I got a call. "Michael Hayes?" The voice was calm. "Official. This is Detective Carter. We'd like you to come in for questioning." I went, because innocent men have nothing to hide. Right? The detective's office smelled of cheap coffee and tired air. He slid a file across the table. Inside pictures of the drug packets they'd found. He leaned forward. "We know you didn't put them there." I froze. You know?" He nodded. "But someone close to you did." Those words hit harder than any accusation. He continued, "We traced the fingerprints on the packet. They belong to one of your kitchen staff." I swallowed hard. "Who?" He looked down at his file, then met my eyes. "Eric Daniels." For a second, the room spun. Eric, my best friend. The one who started with me when I was broke. The one who believed in me when my parents didn't. "No," I whispered. "You've got the wrong person. Eric would never do that." The detective sighed. "We're bringing him in for questioning. You might want to talk to him first." When I got back to the restaurant, Eric was already waiting outside. He looked nervous, his hands shaking, his eyes darting around like he was being watched. "Eric," I said quietly. He looked up, his face pale. "Michael, it's not what it looks like." "Then tell me what it is." He ran a hand through his hair. "They offered me money, Mike. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't have a choice." "Who?" My voice cracked. He hesitated, then whispered. For a moment, everything stopped. The sound of traffic, the wind, my heartbeat, all vanished. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say it was some cruel joke. But Eric's eyes were red, real. He continued, tears spilling. He said if I didn't do it, he'd ruin me. Said he'd make sure no restaurant ever hired me again. I just had to plant the packet, Mike. Just one time. I thought no one would find out. I took a step back. So, my own father tried to destroy me? Eric nodded slowly. He said you humiliated him, that you made the family name a joke. He wanted you to lose everything. I couldn't breathe. My own father, the man who taught me how to ride a bike, who told me men don't cry, was now the reason my dream was burning to the ground. I sank to the pavement, my hands trembling. Eric knelt beside me, crying. I'm so sorry, Mike. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted to hate him, but all I could feel was pain deep, raw pain that cut through everything I'd built. I looked up at the sky and whispered, he threw me out once for chasing my dream, and now he's trying to bury it. The next morning, I went to my parents' mansion. The same house I left 5 years ago. The same door that closed behind me when I had nowhere else to go. The maid opened it, froze, then whispered, Mr. Hayes, your son is here. My father walked into the hallway, still in his suit, still proud, still unshaken. Michael, he said coldly, you shouldn't be here. I stepped closer. You framed me. He didn't deny it. He didn't even blink. He just sighed, like he was tired of explaining. You embarrassed me in front of the entire city, he said. Told the world that a Hayes would rather flip pans than build empires. You needed to be reminded of your place. My place? I whispered. My place was in your heart, Dad. But you kicked me out of there too. He turned away. You'll thank me one day. This world doesn't respect chefs, it respects power. I smiled bitterly. Then you're about to see how powerful a chef can be. I walked out of that mansion with a fire I hadn't felt in years. They wanted to see me fall? Fine. But this time, when I rise, they'll have to watch every second of it. 3 weeks. That's how long my restaurant stayed closed. 3 long weeks of silence, shame, and headlines. But those 3 weeks changed everything. Because I didn't just sit there and cry, I built a plan. When life burned down my dream, I didn't grab water. I learned how to make fire dance. Eric came to me one evening, still weighed down by guilt. Mike, you shouldn't forgive me, he said. I looked at him. I'm not ready to, but I will when we get justice. He frowned. Justice? Against your father? I nodded. No, against everyone who tried to bury me. I started small, gathering every piece of evidence I could. Security footage, phone logs, bank transfers. Turns out, my father didn't just bribe Eric. He paid Mr. Henson too to send the tip to the media and destroy my reputation. But here's the thing about powerful men, they love leaving trails, especially when they think no one's watching. By the time I was done, I had a full file thick enough to make even a lawyer sweat. Then I did something unexpected. I reopened the restaurant not quietly, but with a storm. The Ember Room returned with a bang, new decor, new staff uniforms, new everything. And an exclusive event, the Chef's Table A private dinner with the owner. Invitations went out to all the city's elites, business tycoons, influencers, and, yes, my parents. The night came. The lights glowed golden. Every seat was taken. As I walked in, wearing my white chef's coat with my name embroidered in gold, I could feel every eye on me. Then I saw them, my father and mother, sitting at the front table. My father looked uneasy this time. My mother looked older, sadder. I smiled politely. "Good evening, everyone," I said into the mic. "Tonight, you're not just here for food. You're here for truth." The crowd murmured. Cameras turned on. I clicked the remote, and a video started playing on the big screen behind me. Security footage from my own restaurant kitchen. It showed a man, Eric, sneaking something behind the oven. Then it showed him meeting my father outside, taking an envelope. Gasps filled the room. My mother covered her mouth. My father's face went pale. I turned back to the crowd. 3 weeks ago, I was accused of hiding drugs in my restaurant. The story made headlines, but what they didn't know was that it was all a setup. My father stood abruptly. "Michael, this isn't the place." I raised my voice, firm but calm. "You're right, Dad. This isn't the place for lies anymore." I turned to the audience. The man who taught me that dreams were shameful tried to destroy mine. But tonight, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to show every child who's ever been called a failure that your pain can become your power. The room fell silent. My mother began to cry quietly. My father couldn't look at me. Then I walked to their table. Everyone watched. I placed a glass of wine in front of them and said softly, "Enjoy your meal. It's on the house, my house." The same words I said the night they humiliated me. Only this time, I meant them differently. Because that night, I wasn't the son who was thrown out. I was the man who came home on his own terms. After the dinner, I stepped outside into the cool night air. Eric joined me, wiping his eyes. "You did it, Mike." I looked up at the city skyline and smiled. "No," I said quietly. "We did it." The cameras, the whispers, the flashes, none of it mattered anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need my father's approval. I had something better. Peace. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you are the first to break you. Sometimes, the love you never got from family becomes the fire that shapes your strength. When my parents threw me out, I thought my story was over. But now I know they didn't end my story. They started it. Life will push you, test you, and even betray you. But remember this, your pain is not your prison. It's your preparation. If they laugh at your dreams, let them. Because one day, they'll sit in the audience and you'll be the one standing on the stage. So to anyone listening right now, don't give up. Don't let anyone write your ending for you. You decide who you become. You decide how the story ends. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Because someone out there needs to be reminded that failure is not final, and dreams, no matter how small, still matter. Until next time, this is Michael, signing off with one last reminder. Never stop believing in yourself.